You can turn to 1 Samuel 3 while I'm putting this on if you want. And 1 Samuel 1, we'll start there actually. A few days ago, Becky gave us a bag of popcorn. Actually, it was like kettle corn. I really liked my hand in, and Marilyn said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm eating kettle corn." I said, "Did you read what it says on there?" I said, "Sure." I said, "What's it say?" It says, "Wow, W-O-W." She says, "Well, if you look up from others are wow, right? Others are neat. Little kid in school was learning all about science, and they were learning about magnets and attraction and all of that, and so the teacher was giving them a quiz and said, "Guess what I am? I start with M and I pick up things." The little kid said, "You're a mother." Yeah, that's right. Mothers start with M and they pick up things. That's so true. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, we have one of the great wow mothers of the Bible. Her name was Hannah. And I think that Hannah, though she is a good example of mothers, is a good example for anyone, whether we are a mother or not. It's a lesson, and all Bible has lessons through it, spiritual things, no matter where we may look, how important it is. It says there was a certain man, Ramathaim Zophim, his name was Elkanah. And he had, in verse 2, 2 wives. Can you hear a little trouble? 2 wives. Some people in the Bible were so stupid, they got 15 or 20. And one guy really was off the beam. He had 1,000. What are you thinking? My. Anyway, he had 2 wives. Now, that was not illegal. It was not immoral. It was not against the law of God. You could do that in the Old Testament because God said, well, Jesus actually said, I did that for the hardness of your heart. I let that happen. But the original plan was 1 man and 1 woman for a lifetime. That's the original plan. And I don't think that you'll ever find in the Bible where they multiplied wives where they had a sweet relationship as it should have been. Because the Bible said that you're to dwell with your wife according to knowledge. In Peter, you get that? He'll take all the knowledge you got to live with the woman you have. And I don't say that to put women down. I mean, that's the way God's made it. They are complex, but it's a wonderful payoff when you coordinate your life with them, and that's the way God planned it. Anyway, he had 2 wives. And so my first point is, I appreciate Hannah. She was a wow mom because she could handle the situation that she was in. She was in quite a situation. She was one of 2 wives. What do you call the other woman that's married your husband at the same time you are? I don't know. There's even a name for that. And I know, I'm pretty confident that you're not in the same situation, but how do you handle your situation? Everybody's got a situation, you know. And she handled it. So I'm not like that. I hope not, but I lived near Moulton, for several years. And I like Moulton. I really love Moulton, actually. But I never have quite understood Moulton altogether. You see, when I was in high school, my high school was 4 times at least the size of Moulton. Then my kids in high school, I go this book now, and I couldn't figure it out. First time I ever saw Moulton, I went to the Jamboree, worked at the music store, and he said, just stay over there. You know, about an hour and a half, because you can bring it home. I'll just go see the city. For 5 minutes, I've seen all my lawn of the street. That's all I did. And I was just kind of, really, all there is this. There's not even a traffic light in the whole town. I was amazed, but I didn't see the real Moulton. But anyway, there are some things I can't quite understand. Years ago, I used to pick up a couple of kids for Sunday school. This is many years ago now. And the mom would come over to in a while, and one day I was talking to the kids, and I said, you know why I live in Bolton? I said, no, I really don't. I said, well, I did to get away from the big city. She told me where she was from. She said, we lived in this big town. And one day I went to get my cleaning. And another lady was there, she went to get her cleaning, and we went to get the cleaning, and it was in the same name. And honestly, this is the truth. In that big city, this man was married 2 women at the same time, and one lived on one part of town, one lived on the other part, I mean, like Davenport or something. I mean, there was a big town that never crossed, and he had both houses going at the same time. I don't understand that. But that's what he was doing. And they never met each other until they were this cleaning. They said, well, I'm married, oh, you think that? I'm married to Joe Jones. Well, I'm married to Joe Jones. The Joe Jones, yeah, I think they discovered, finally found out they were married to the same guy. Well, she left him, obviously, and moved far away to Bolton. And then she finally married another guy. And then she left him with the house, and he married some other one. He still lives in the house. Now, can you figure out what? I can't figure out what. But that's just the way it works. And then they say, about the same thing. And I'm just saying this, that everybody has a situation. She had a situation where she was married to a guy, another the same guy, and it was a happy situation. You see, the other woman had plenty of children. And she'd say, I've got all these kids. And she'd make a lot of fun of poor Hannah, who had no children at all. And you can't understand how poor children were in that day, more than today. If you didn't have a baby back then, you weren't anything. Women were much anyway, it's had the same, should have been that way, that's the way it was. And in their society, if you were a married woman having a kid, you were just absolutely almost looked down upon it by everyone. She didn't have a child. And so every time they'd have this big feast, you know, they'd gather in this big happy home, but it wasn't a happy home. And I'll just tell you that there's a lot of problems. And you can have God help you handle those problems, but there will probably be some problems somewhere along the line. You're like, oh, I wish I were this or that, and probably it's not as good as you think. Now I got a Kindle Fire, and I can go back and I play sometimes old songs, country songs, I guess you call them. That I used to hear on the Capitol Opera years ago. Maybe I should listen to them, I don't know. But they're not quite like the terrible ones today. But I thought, oh, that one I've heard before. And it had Charlie's Shoes. You didn't know that song. The idea was that, you know, I used to envy Charlie because he had you and all of that. Then Charlie left, and now I've got you. And I'm wearing out the shoes that Charlie wore, walking around across the floor. Well, Charlie didn't have it so good after all, did he? He thought he did, this guy did, but after all, when you find out what happened to Charlie, maybe it's not so great. And the grass is not always greener where you think it is. You have problems, I have problems, we'll have problems in some form in our life, and don't wish for other things, just say, here is where I am, and how can I work this out? It must be something that God has in mind, and don't disdain it. Well, then have this big peace, as I was saying, and then they make fun of her, and she'd cry. Now, her husband really loved her, trying to keep up her more than the other woman. Isn't that funny how life is? What you have, you wish you had something else. Oh, I wish I didn't have, I wish I had that. Somebody could look at it, they wish they had it, able to say or something. And those you can't, oh, I wish I had money. I wish I had. Isn't it funny how we're not really too satisfied with what we really are and what we should be? But I wish she had her husband's love, and Hannah wished she had the kids. No perfect life, right? Life has its problems, and that's what life is. If perfect were life, you would want to go to heaven, wouldn't you? You want to stay here. Anyway, her husband really loved her. And when they had dinner, he passed the dinner out. Years ago, he had a lot of kids, and he met a family style. He used to pass him the plate, and he put on what they thought he thought they should eat, and then pass the plates around, and what was left was his. So I can put it on his plate. You know, there's always there was ready because he ate the last bit of it, and every kid had what he thought was supposed to eat, and that was kind of a family style dad doing it. Well, apparently Elkin was kind of like that because he passed out the food. When it came to Hannah, she got a double portion. You know, she was just trying to, didn't have to eat it all, and just showing blessing. You remember, like Joseph, all he did with his brother Benjamin, gave him so much more. Not that he'd eat it all, but this is favor. Food's favor, isn't it? Food is always kind of that comfort kind of thing. So he gave it to that. And she had the food and the love, and she had the kids, and it was just awful. But to top it all up, the Bible says that Teresa didn't have a child, but that God had shut her womb. God said, no, you can't have a baby. You can't. Oh, she didn't blame God then, but God had a plan, because, and you think this whole thing through, she had a child, as you know, by the name of Samuel, who was one of the greatest people of the whole Bible. And certainly probably the greatest judge of the Bible, that really was faithful to God and served God, and one of the greatest prophets we had. There are hardly anybody greater in the whole of the Old Testament than Samuel, and God said, you're going to have to wait. That is that God does that. You're going to have to wait. Wait for what? Wait for my timing. You see people say, well, they jump way ahead of God, and it's really hard. I can't tell you how to do this, to know when's when. It just takes a lot of obedience, reading, study, prayer, and try to listen to the mind of God, because God will sometimes slow you up and not give you what you want. It won't work out the way you want to right now, because something better is coming, and that's hard to believe, but that happens. If she had a child back here, maybe we'd never heard of Samuel or have the boy we need, but God said no. It's not going to happen, not right now. And so what did she do? Well, she did what she's supposed to do. How do you handle a problem? You go to God. If you want to turn back with me to 1 Samuel 1, you can listen to the prayer she made. She went to the house of God, dried her tears basically, and then she prayed and cried some more, and she is telling God something that maybe she'd never said before. I don't know. I would guess that she'd prayed many times, wouldn't you? But somehow this prayer was special, and she began to pray, and she really, really meant it. And so she said, it's in chapter 1, in verse 11, she vowed a vow, and she said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look upon the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget mine handmaid, but will give unto thy handmaid, that's her, a man-child. You pray definitely. Girl will be nice, but I want a boy. Why do you want a boy? Because I want to give him to you all the days of his life, and there shall not be a razor come upon his head. And she prayed like that, and she was weeping, and her voice was not heard, and she was just so intent. And the priest came up and he said, woman, you are drunk. Get out of here. And she said, I'm not drunk. I haven't had wine. I'm not drunk any beer. Some translate the other. I've not had any alcohol at all. I have a sorrowful spirit, and I've come before God to tell him what I feel. Isn't that interesting? She laid her heart out to God and had a definite prayer. You can pray definitely for God. Here's what I want. Now remember, it's really hard to always know how God's going to deal, isn't it? You say, now you're going to kind of welch on me a little bit. If I pray, I'm going to get what I want automatically. Not necessarily. You see, it's really difficult, but we need to be in tune with God. When children aren't given to a person, is that because God doesn't allow it? Not necessarily. When somebody has suffering, does that mean because they've been bad? No. Could be like Job. God allowed the devil to tempt. It's hard to read sometimes, isn't it? The Bible tells you in Ecclesiastes that God has made it so that you can't determine altogether his mind. He has left it a little bit mysterious. So you'll just keep on trusting no matter what. You may think, oh, I'm in good sailing. I must be right with God. You may not be. Or this is really choppy water, something's wrong. May not be so. God may be preparing you for something really good. It's hard to know. But just keep faith and trust no matter what the circumstance, because we'll all have some bad ones. But there's always God. And there's always prayer. And she prayed and was misunderstood. And the priest said, I don't know why you have to be like this. Apparently drunks came in every now and then, and it'd be terrible to have to clear the drunks out of the church. And she told, as I said, what she was, and he said, oh, excuse me. Oh, lady, then may whatever you've prayed for, may it happen. And you know what? It said in verse 18, the lady went her way, they did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. There's an old song I haven't heard of a lot lately. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. That's what she did. Now, she didn't have a child yet. She didn't have the prayer answered, but she was confident that because she prayed and she meant it and the priest blessed her, she was sure that things were going to come out fine, and she had done all she could. No use worrying. We worry, don't we? That's human. Oh, we're just fretful and everything. After we go down the road, why did I worry about that? That wasn't even to be worried about. I mean, it worked out fine, and God was in that, and why would I worry? Why was I complaining? Why was I distrusting him? Why was I whatever? And Jesus said, I don't know why either, because he feeds the birds. He takes care of the lilies. Can he take care of you? Oh, you have little faith? And you try and get the disciples to understand that, to quit worrying so much and believe more. And when you pray, believe it. If you told the Lord something, believe that he heard that. And he's going to work it out. Maybe not your time schedule, but he's going to work it out. And I just think she's a wild mother because she handled a bad circumstance that she was living in and couldn't do anything about it. She prayed like she was supposed to. She prayed definitely like she was supposed to. And when she prayed, she just let the Lord take care of her burden and walked away no more sad. You see the way home's happier? The happy little family is happier now. They're traveling home. She's in good mood. Elkanah says, oh, that's wonderful. I don't know what happened, but I'm so glad she's happy. And they go all the way home happy, and everything's wonderful. And you know what happened, don't you? We got home, and in a little bit, she's expecting. She had to go to ultrasound. She was just having a baby boy because she prayed for that. Absolutely confident. And so it was. And Samuel was born. And she was really glad. I guess there's a great bond there. And when you think about it, Elkanah tried to say to her, well, if you don't have a child, I'm better than 10, aren't I? Doesn't that sound like a man trying to patch things up? Well, I got it. No, I love you, honey, but you know what? There's something you need to understand, and that is there's a love that a mother has for a child that's like none other. I'm not describing it. I'm not a mother, but I know that exists. And push comes to shove, and the old guy doesn't do so right. You know who mom's going to stand up for? You know who's going to be protected above all things? The children. Well, God made it that way, didn't he? So we could raise children and protect them. They're helpless. They're defenseless. Who's going to come to their aid? You find so many times that it's a mother that is raising these children, and the dad, he's off and doing whatever he's doing, but mother loves them, and she's not going to let them go. That's just the way it is. He just, if you had 10 kids, you couldn't love them more than you love me. Oh, honey, give him a kiss and let him go. But, there's just nothing like it. And when God sometimes tried to describe his love to us, he'll say, kind of like a mother cherishing a child, but God usually uses father terms. Or Jesus saying, think about a mama hen, how she gathers her chickens. And she'll fight the fox if she has to. And Jesus said, I would have fought anything to save Jerusalem, but you wouldn't want to come. Remember that as he closed out his ministry in Jerusalem. There's a special bond. One day a little boy was walking by his mom and said, Mom, how old were you when I was born? And she said, I was 36. And she said, well, that's too bad. Well, why is that? Well, there's 36 years we didn't get to know each other. Well, I haven't quite figured out. Well, that's kind of a neat idea that we had a great, great bond, and it just continues on and on and on. She had this little boy, and they said, next year it's time to go to church. You see, we live several miles. We go to church only once a year. That is a special feast, like the Central Rally. We just go once a year to that. And so we're going to go down, and she said, well, I'm not going this year. You're not? Well, no, a little baby. Can't travel. Nursing him, and he's little, and, well, okay. He said, but remember, honey, what you promised God. You ever see people promise God and then not do it? Oh, God, if you just help me, maybe you've done that sometime. Oh, God, if you just help me do this. Oh, God, what will you do? Oh, I'll tithe, go to church, stand on my head, anything you want me to do. Are you sure? Cletus said, don't vow and don't pay. Better not to vow if you're going to do that. He said, honey, now that you have this little boy, are you going to give him to God? Can you think how hard that would be? Your own son, your one and only son. You're going to give him, you're going to take him and give him to the priest and walk away home, and he's maybe about 3 or something like that. You love him now, you think a lot of him. You're attached to him, he's yours. Honey, can you really do that? That's quite a gift, isn't it? You ever think that God maybe has stories like this to remind you of how hard it was to let his son go to earth? To say, go ahead and be killed and all those things that go with it. You think how hard that would have been too? Probably. But there came the time when she said, all right, it's time. I'm going to take him to God. And packed up whatever stuff he had. And she stood there before the priest and she said, do you remember me? I don't know if he did or not. He probably saw thousands of people. You remember me? Kids will say that. I used to go to camp. I was 8 years old then. Well, yeah, now you're 20. I'm supposed to know who you are. I don't look like 8 years old anymore, but they know us older people, and we kind of look like we've looked, and they know who we are. She said, in case you forgot, I'm the woman that was praying so intently. You see, prayer is so rare that if I could remember prayer like that, and I prayed for this son, and here he is. Surprise or surprise? No, because that's what God does. He gives you your request if he possibly can. Now, she said, the good news is, I asked to be given this son so that he could be given to God. I have brought him to the house of God today to live here forever. Yeah. Well, what does the kid think? Didn't ask what the kid thought. Moms are molders of souls. Dads too. We mold their souls so they'll follow God. We don't ask them if that's what they'd like to do. That's what we are supposed to be doing. As much as we possibly can is trying to mold them for God. Our job sometimes doesn't always come together the way we want, but that's the plan. The plan is to bring these children to God. We don't say, would you like to? They are formed, and we try to make it winsome. We try to make it enjoyable. It's a great thing to be a Christian, and it ought to be in our home. Well, we enjoy being Christians. It's a wonderful life all the way through, every day, not just Sunday. We enjoy that. So she brought him. And what did the priest think, who's approaching 90 or so? What do you think I'm going to do with the 3-year-old? Wouldn't that be marvelous? I can't imagine that. Leaving church Sundays and said, I'm leaving my kid here for you forever. I don't think so. You better take your kid on home. But that's not the way it was. But you see, back in that day, there were women who widowed, and they were living in the confines of this temple, and others too that just dedicated themselves to God. And so there were plenty of surrogate mothers to take this little boy. And when he got a little bit older, maybe 6 or 7, he then slept in his little bed right next to the blind prophet, who found him to be immensely useful, where he could put the lights out, when he could take the lights out at night and help him to his bed, give him a drink or whatever needed to be done. And he was very useful. And Samuel ministered to the Lord from about the age of 1st grade. And so can every person. There's a job for every person, no matter how old they may be, in the house of God. But there's one other great thing, and because of time, we'll just stop with it. She went home. Some of you will know what I'm talking about when your child leaves home and they graduate and leave or whatever, get married. Now some might say, oh good. I've known a few people start, don't want to be there at all. As soon as, and they said in the old days that they would take their plate and break it when they got 18 because you're done, man. You're on your own. I don't feel that way. But anyhow, you've had that. They go off to school or whatever, and there's a big empty spot. Will you ever feel normal again, you wonder? When they've left, and eventually you do, and life goes on. But can you imagine what this mother might have felt like when she came home, having given her 3-year-old, and her whole life was built around Samuel, and now there's nothing? But the good news is that in about 9 or 10 months, she had a new baby. And then she had another 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 baby. And then she had enough. 5 children besides Samuel. Does God pay off? Does God bless us? When we give him the first choice and the best, will we ever be beholden to God and say, well, I got gypped? No. You give me one, I give you 5. Ooh, pretty good deal. And I don't know any more about her except that she came every year and brought him a new coat because her mother love was continuing on and on and on. She enjoyed loving him, and he served God because of her. I thank all of you mothers for what you've done for us, the kids, older and younger. We appreciate all of that. Today we honor you for that. If we are a young mother, well, we've got a big job yet on our hand, don't we? But it's a wonderful job that we can raise a Samuel to serve God. And that's the point of really what we're here for, is to help other souls to come closer to God. And if we haven't, God understands that, and we still pray. And what can prayer do? Marvelous things. We see some things right now starting to break open that you wouldn't have thought. It's marvelous to watch how God's working right now in this place with certain people's lives for good. Don't lose heart. He is working, and that's tremendous. Our song, 497, so there's a place right next to the heart of God of love. And as we said earlier, a mother's love is an indication of how this really is. What a blessed Redeemer, what a close Savior we have who loves us so tremendously. And may we appreciate both what our mothers have done, because all love has come from God to put in their heart to bless us. Let's sing the first stanza, 497. There is a place of quiet rest near to the heart of God, a place where sin cannot molest. Heart of God, oh Jesus, blessed Redeemer, sent from the heart of God, hold us to wait before thee, near to the heart of God. I'd like to have you sit just a moment, and I need all of the kids who have mothers here today come up here, and Brian and Martha have delicious flowers for you. And Luke's going to bring them, I think. You're going to bring them up for me? Oh, I'm hardly carrying. If your mother is here, I don't care how old you are, if your mother is here, come up front. I need to have you pick a flower for your mom, okay? Luke's got a hold of them here. I wish you had more. Come get a flower. Good deal. All right. All right. Pick whatever color you want and take it to your mom. Oh, good. Here's Taylor. Grandma. Okay. Good. Good. Now y'all should come back too, if you want to. And you see there's some others that are mothers here that don't have kids here, so can you find one of them and take them a flower too? Should be several to pick out, which are which. All right, there's a table. Okay. Anybody see another lady that needs a flower? Luke's got some. He's ready to pass out to somebody. Let's see here. Oh, your partner's going to help us. All right, thank you. All right, good. Good deal. We're not done yet. I don't think we're not. Not everybody's got a flower yet. Look all. Let's put Katie in there too. Yeah, she's yeah. Nobody's still. Now, if you see somebody else that looks like they'd like to have a flower, right? All right, all right. Hey, Luke, can you find somebody else like that, another flower or something like that? Or, all right, we want to have people have these flowers, all right? Well, here we go. She's going to get a flower. I'm going to get a flower. Okay, good deal. You know what Patty had on that? Oh, Patty. Oh, the piano. Forgot about Patty. Luke, do you want to take one of her? Well, you can take one. Okay, for her. You got it? Oh, good. All right. There we go. Thank you, Brian, thank you. Appreciate that very, very much. Everybody else with flowers, you don't want to do the, you don't want to say anything? All right, just like everybody. All right, let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day, and thank you for those who bless our lives in the rich ways. And pray today your blessings upon those who have mothered us and blessed us in both ways. We guide their lives and appreciate, Lord, the sacrifice that they went through to bring us to the world in the first place, and guide us in times of weakness. We can help ourselves. Lord, help us. I wonder you can help us to really appreciate what has been done with us. We thank you, Lord, for your love that has in all. And Lord, we bless and say for your name. Jesus, thank you for it. Word is
Now that on, did I?
Did I?